Someone asks if you took the trash out. Simple question, yes or no. But instead of answering, you're suddenly explaining the whole timeline. I was going to do it right after dinner, but then the phone rang and I realized I hadn't checked the mail yet. So I went out to the box first, and while I was there, the bin looked full, so I just... And you're watching their face while you talk. You can see it, that slight shift, like they're already regretting they asked. You do this all the time, can't just answer. Have to explain, justify, defend. Build this whole case around the simplest things. Not because you like talking, because something in you can't leave it alone. If you can't answer a question without turning it into a deposition, this one's for you. What you're doing has a name, the inner lawyer. It's not just how you talk. It's a defense mechanism you built when you were a kid. You grew up somewhere your reality wasn't good enough on its own. Maybe a parent who needed explanations for everything. Who asked, "Why are you so clumsy?" when you dropped a glass. Like it might have been on purpose. Like you needed to prove it wasn't. So you learned to build a case. You couldn't just say, "I spilled the milk." You had to show it was an accident, walk them through it, present the evidence before they decided you were careless or lying. And there was this look, when you didn't explain enough, or explained wrong, that flicker of doubt, so you just kept talking. Now you're an adult and you're still doing it, still presenting opening statements for things that don't need them. You're not trying to waste anyone's time. You're just trying to avoid a punishment that stopped being real a long time ago. But your body doesn't know that yet. Here's what I didn't realize for the longest time. What's actually going on when you over-explain. First, there's the trauma piece. Your brain is running something called a Fawn response. That's one of the trauma responses, like fight or flight. But instead of running or pushing back, you try to appease the threat. For you, that means words. Because silence used to be dangerous. Silence could get filled with assumptions, with anger, with, "I knew you were lying." So you learn to fill it first, with reasons, with context, with proof that you're trying. And here's the part that made it click for me. There's this thing called the illusion of transparency. They did a study once. People tapped out a song on a table, like "Happy Birthday," and they had to guess if the listener would recognize it. The tappers thought listeners would get it right about half the time. Actual success rate? 2.5%. Because when you're tapping, you hear the whole song in your head. It's obvious to you. But the listener just hears random knocking. That's what you're doing. You have all this context in your head, your reasons, your intent, the full story. And because it's so clear to you, you assume the other person hears it too. When they don't, something panics. So you add more words, more details, more tapping. But they still just hear noise. Here's the thing you need to understand. You think you're being clear, helpful, thorough. But what you're actually doing is building a wall. Every extra sentence is another layer between you and the possibility of rejection. You're not explaining anymore. You're defending. And the person you're talking to? They're not a judge. They just asked about the trash. The inner lawyer you hired as a kid was necessary back then. That attorney kept you safe when the court was real and the consequences were harsh. But you're not in that courtroom anymore, and you're still presenting cases to people who aren't even asking for them. Here's the shift. Most people don't need your whole chain of reasoning. A short answer isn't rude. It's not incomplete. It doesn't make you look suspicious. They weren't interrogating you. They were just asking. And here's what the inner lawyer doesn't want you to say. All that explaining? It's not protecting you from judgment. It's creating it. The person who would have been fine with, "Yeah, I got it," is now wondering why you sound so defensive. The rambling becomes the weird part. You're making the thing you're afraid of. So here's what I want you to try, just once. Someone asks you something, and you answer in 10 words or less. Not because you're being cold, but because you're testing something that you don't need to defend yourself to people who aren't attacking you. All those explanations you carry around, that's not helping anyone understand you better. That's just the weight of a kid who had to prove their innocence every day. But you're not that kid anymore. And most of the people asking you questions now, they're not the ones who made silence dangerous. You can just answer. No case, no evidence, no defense. Because here's the thing. Most people aren't judging you anywhere near as hard as you think they are. Let the lawyer rest. The trial ended a long time ago. You were never guilty. If you're tired of defending yourself to people who weren't even asking, subscribe. This channel is for people who've spent too long explaining and are finally realizing they don't have to. You don't owe anyone a closing argument for being human.